You know, a little while ago, I quoted Arnold Worldwide CEO Andrew Bennett, who said, "A Starbucks barista gets more training than the average advertising professional." Whoa, this seemed to really connect with people's frustrations. Why don't we get more training? And is this the reason why our loyalty to our employers is a little lower than most other industries? Or is it our fault? Would we rather just take a training budget and spend it on an award show after party? Maybe. And if we do get training, well, what's the best type and who delivers it? Well, our guest today can help us answer those questions. With us, a professor of creative advertising at Seneca College and Twitter star, Anthony Calumet. The chief creative officer and recent inductee to the Marketing Hall of Legends, Nancy Vonk. The founder and CEO of 3 Training, Leslie M. The director of human resources at Armstrong Partnership, Jeff Plotnikoff. And the director of professional development at the ICA, Suzanne Filiatro. Well, we'll exchange thoughts, we'll exchange ideas, we'll exchange opinions, and hopefully you'll exchange yours with us too. I'm your host, Ron Tite, and this is Exchange. So in the opening, we referenced the quote from Andrew Bennett that a Starbucks employee gets more training. A Starbucks barista gets more training than the average advertising professional. And man, this really connected with a lot of people. I wrote a piece about it, and the response was overwhelming. And clearly, that quote tapped into a lot of frustrations that people had. So Jeff, I'm going to start with you. So as the only director of HR for an agency here on the panel, why aren't agencies investing more in training?
A couple of reasons. I think that a lot of the hiring in agencies, I think the training goes back to hiring. And when we hire, it's because of an urgent need or a perceived need. So the rule is get the body in, get them doing the job, and then after that, everything falls out. Or falls apart, one of the two. So what you want to do, I think, is be a little more proactive and get things in place so at least your induction is smooth and a new staff is hired, you start the training right away and then off they go. But that isn't really the industry model.
The industry model really is we just want a new piece of business we have to staff.
We need a body in a chair to do this. So.
That's telling, get the body in.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think
and I hear that from the hiring agent, from the account teams and the account team leads saying, I need a body. Yeah, and then I have to say, okay, and this body, what are you looking for? What's the background?
Yeah.
What are the skill sets? Where's the education?
But how does getting a warm body actually stop us from educating the warm body?
It doesn't, but the agency is just so in reactive mode and just so reflexive. We have this need, fill it. And then they're like, oh, it's done.
Yeah, they're doing the work, not doing the training.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I think the training has to be part of the bigger context for the agency. There has to be a training model in place. So do we give an X amount of dollars per person per year? We train them once a year. You have to go on a course, whatever the case may be, but most agencies talk the talk when they're hiring, and then they don't walk the walk when they're hired.
Right. But is there an expectation on people leaving that they're just going to go to another agency, so we don't have to take care of them?
I don't think people are literally thinking that. I think it's actually much more upstream than that. I think that literally everybody's operating with less funding for everything, and it's literally been deprioritized. It's just that simple. And you said the word reactive. I mean, I think that's at the heart of so many bad things happening, including training not happening. It's, oh my God, I've got to get the job done, and everybody's just staring at this incredible deadline and not enough people to do it. And so it's, I mean, to me, that's at the heart of.
Oh, I've heard every excuse there can possibly be about why we can't train right now, or why it's everything from.
So give us the top three. Top three excuses.
The top 3 excuses are: we just want a piece of business, so we don't have time. Yeah. We just lost a piece of business, so now we're terrified and we don't have the money. Or we are still in the process of hiring and we're not really sure, and things haven't, we're still trying to reorg and trying to, like, dude, that's called forever.
Yeah.
That's every single day. So what you're saying in one way or the other is we just can't get it together to do it. And everybody has the best intentions. I mean, I don't think I've ever, well, maybe once or twice, and I've spoken to, probably hundreds of agencies about training. And it almost never happens that someone says, nah, not training, not interested. Everybody is interested in the idea of training and really sort of morally, ethically wants to give this training to their people, but finding the way to make it work.
I think it does make it really difficult. I mean, but ultimately, I think what's inside of what Leslie talked about there is really important for us to kind of pull apart a bit, because this whole kind of tension between what people kind of ethically or morally feel is right and what they are intentional about. The words, their intentions are good. I'd actually like to suggest that I don't think we have our intentions clear. And I think that's really at the heart of what our biggest challenge is in training people, is we have sort of this morally right, that we have this sort of rightness about training. And yet when it comes right down to it, a rightness doesn't make a training strategy, nor does it make people realize that at the heart of what we do are people.
But what about for you, Anthony? Because you've got a great position where you show up.
And they're waiting to learn.
And I've spent the last 2 years.
Yep, 2-3 years depending.
2 or 3 years training them. And how are agencies reacting to that? Do they want to do their own proprietary thing?
No, I mean, they're expecting the schools like Seneca, Humber, OCAD, et cetera, to prepare them for the skills that are expected of a writer, so that they can write, an art director that can design, that can draw, that all the skills they're going to need. That's an expectation in a portfolio. Right. They want that, 100%. Yep. What I'm hoping one day I'm going to hear from an agency is, give us life skills 101 someplace in here. Agency politics 101. I mean, it'd be great to put the real stuff. The real stuff. I mean, but then again, what do I drop out of the program because you only have X amount of hours, that you can teach them or, have them in a classroom, and you say, well, where do I put life skills 101 in? Like, just that one thing is, how do you open a checking account? What does it mean when somebody comes up to you and says, something about somebody at the office? And you guys can't do that either. Like, where do we put this in? And then, so the internship programs, I turn to some of the agencies that I go meet with each year, and I say, so your internship program, how can we make it better with our students? And I ask, is there anything we can contribute? Like, I'd be happy to come in on a Friday afternoon, do a lunch and learn while my kids are doing an internship. And why don't we talk about office politics? What does it mean to not get involved? How does a docket system work? Like, the soft skills that you get thrown into the agency, you're expected to know, but they don't.
But that's the thing, is there's an assumption. There's an assumption that, well, there should be sort of internal training programs. You should learn by doing, right? Learn by doing was a big one. No. They come in, they learn by doing. What part of that day is learned by? That's called being thrown into the fire and hoping that you don't get burned. I mean, it's crazy.
Honestly, there's a short-sightedness, right? It's everybody's just got their eye on 24 hours from now.
That's right. That's
it. And, Suzanne and I used to work together at Ogilvy a long time ago when it was a teaching hospital, and if you, in fact,
it was a teaching hospital, exactly right. Yeah.
And if you didn't show up, now this was not for creatives, by the way, that's a whole other story. Yeah. But if you didn't show up to the weekly session, your job was in jeopardy. Yeah. Like, that's how seriously it was taken. And so even at an agency, at a network whose founder was really committed to training and saw it as a differentiator and saw incredible upside to doing it and mandating it to the point of you were going to be fired if you didn't follow through. Even in that network, it's fallen away, and that. I mean, it's
back to intention. All the best intentions.
All the best intentions, but we don't have to. Oh my God, we don't have time. People really do legitimately seem to. I can't make it,
but I think
and so on and so forth.
Because I had this conversation with a senior member of senior management at a large agency, and he said, we used to do this. We used to have great training, and then people would leave for $5,000.
Yep.
Why are we going to invest all this money to train these people when they're just going to go, they're going to follow a client, they're going to go work for another creative director, they're going to go to another agency? We've trained them and they leave.
But the era of the gold watch has been over for so long. That's just the nature of the business. But if everybody trained their people, they'd get better trained people in, and it would be a sharing.
Well,
like a pay it forward.
And we know it does go to retention. We know that it is meaningful.
Yes.
It is. It can absolutely make the difference. I mean, I think that same article did mention, numbers on how powerful it can be too, to approach people saying, we want you to grow as an individual, whether you're here or not. I mean, that's the most powerful promise you can make people.
I just want to get back to something that Anthony raised about, that you teach the kind of the technical or the craft expertise. But that where, the life skills and the real issues aren't being trained. And Nancy, would you agree that that's the biggest area that we should look at? That Photoshop training and, that's fine, we're expecting you to be there, but it's these broader issues that's what we should focus on?
Well, that's what I'm thinking of the most myself. I think it is. And I totally agree. We don't even begin to expect the schools to actually do it, although...
Yeah, it's entry level.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm assuming that in your industry, you're trying to get even more basic things done, as we're talking about in advertising.
Well, I'm trying to catch up to what you need.
Yeah. So it's
we're trying to catch up. We don't know what we need.
It's something that's been something in most, now years and years, that you are just learning by osmosis on the job. And if you're really lucky, you have a good mentor that's interested in taking you under their wing. But it's not formal. It's not, there is not dedicated formal commitment to what an incredibly valuable set of life skills can mean.
I'll tell you something that comes up
agency.
all the time for me, because, entry level versus executive level when you're working. And the biggest thing that I hear that's a gap at the entry level is, and I see it at the kind of that next level, that next rung up, when they're working. And that's that we haven't figured out a way to bridge the skill of being able to think and be analytical and an intuitive problem solver. And a lot of that does come from experience, yes. However, I do see it, even at the next rung up of their training, where they're still very, very focused on filling in boxes and checking off, checking off the elements of the thinking, as opposed to actually stepping into the thinking and being curious about it. And I would love to see at an entry level that we could figure out how to reinforce the need for a huge amount of curiosity.
That
particularly coming into
I think.
And you're right. I want to go back to the mentor thing, because again, getting the juniors inside the door, and some of the agency's shortcomings is, I ask my students on exit after internship, and I go, so what was the experience like? And they have to write up a paper, and I feel horrible. The ones that had negative experiences, they came in with the agency saying, you're going to be working with this team, you're going to be working with this CD, whatever, and they're going to be your mentor.
And they became a schlepper to that
team. And they
team.
became a schlepper, exactly.
They were a schlepper.
And all of a sudden they go, by the way, Anthony, do you know what a schlepper is? And I said, yes. I said, that's what I was. I didn't know what a schlepper was. Honestly, that's what they became. They became fetchers, schleppers, whatever you want to call them. And I go, so what happened to the mentorship? And it kind of fell. And that's where I'd like agencies to jump on board, because that's the easiest training ground.